second here. Okay. So, our mission is to provide you guys training, basically real estate investors from acquisition to property management. I'm really a property manager, and I'm going to talk about the deals that I've done, and the stories that I have are basically the stories that I've been in. So it's real information. It's not fake, and I hope you enjoy it. A little bit about me. I am a family man. I've got a wife and 2 children, and there's 2 dogs in the house scratching at the door right now. They want to get out here. They want to see what I'm doing. At one point, I was pretty heavy back in 2015. That big picture there on the screen that you see was my fat mug. And, my nickname was Fat Monk. Not really, but if you take the F off of Funk and put it in front of Matt and put the M from Matt on Funk, it's Fat Monk. So that was a nickname I had when I lived in Kansas City. So I got fit, and you eat right, you stay tight. That's kind of the motto. And the same thing with real estate, buy right and you'll make it right. I wrote a small book. It's on Amazon. It's just a basic book. It's nothing major. You can read just individual chapters and pick something up on it, but there's little details in there, and I think you'll enjoy it. Veronica, how are we doing so far? Can I pass the mic to you?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica Castro, originally from the highlands of Peru, and being in corporate for over 15 years. My last company was Amazon, where I was a program manager for the construction projects. We work in North America throughout. I actually had the opportunity to see how the investment starts in the commercial side, from acquisition all the way to execution. And last year I left corporate, and I'm a realtor in Tampa. I also have my license in Northern Virginia, and I have some investments going on. This is how Matt and I met. We met a clubhouse. We built a community of over 400 people in Property Management Academy, which is something that I've done in the past as well. And we're here to add you some value. I'm very passionate about challenging myself and learning, and this is a great opportunity. The goal is to network and help each other. Back to you, Matt. Thank you.
Sounds good, Veronica. Guys, she's great. If you're looking to promote yourself, or if you have something you're looking to get help with on trying to get more attention to any type of thing you're doing, reach out to Veronica. She's got some good information, and I so far been working well together with her, and I think the insights she shared has helped motivate me. I haven't been doing a whole lot, and she's really the brains behind helping me get this organized. So we're a team on this, and it works great. So basically, I want to go over some of the topics we're going to talk about, and we're going to do about 2 hours, and maybe an hour in, we'll take a 5-minute break. Keep it real easy. One thing I want to mention, I'll give you a legal disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a professional tax person by any means. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing half the time, but sometimes I get lucky and we do pretty good. So if you're going to do something, make sure it's legal within your ordinances in your town, in your state, whatever it is you're going to do. It's up to you. I can't motivate you beyond kicking you out the door to go do something, but I'm not here to protect you in any way. I will give you things to be careful of that I think you should be careful of, but I'm not going to wipe your nose, and I don't think anybody should. You should learn how to do that yourself, and that's what it's like to go around and ask people. So that's my legal disclaimer. I hope you like it. So I was going to talk about the types of investments, targeting a neighborhood, in underwriting several properties. I use the word underwriting because it comes from commercial side of things, but it's running the numbers, trying to figure out what the costs are going to be, what you can get out of it, understanding the rental, the rates, and the tracking, and keeping it tuned. The people in the trenches know this like the back of their hand. And if you're not in the trenches and you want to get familiar with it, you can do so without even owning property. And I'll discuss that as we go on. How do you find the property, make an offer? There's a million different ways. I don't know all of them. I've done a few of them. I'll share what I've done. I'll share some things I think that I would look forward to trying. And I'll tell you what I think on the different types of things that I've done. So that's kind of the subject matter. We've got some more topics to go over, which will be home inspections and the appraisal, funding the deal, holding title, property rehab and upgrading it, maybe adding some value, and then how to find a property manager. Now, look, I've done a lot of different things. I'm not a full-time home flipper. I do a lot of management, but in that, it allowed me to develop the skills that I'm going to talk about today. I've taken a lot of courses. I encourage you to take courses from other people. Somebody mentioned John Schaub. John Shaw was the first class that I took back in 1997, in the summer of 97. It was at Lido Beach at the Holiday Inn, I think. And it's the first time I understood how to buy something with no money. It was an interesting class, a great class. It opened my eyes, and I walked out of there and I was going to go make $1 million. And of course, I didn't do anything. And that's just crazy, but you get so fired up. So the point is, stick with taking classes because they keep you engaged. As soon as you stop, you lose that engagement. So it's so important to keep yourself engaged. So I'll get into the meat of the program because I don't want to delay because I've got a lot to share. And if we run over, great. If we run short, we'll open it up for conversation, and I'll just take your questions and I'll talk about anything that I can talk about. I don't care what it is, but if it's related to real estate, I'll give you an answer. So the first type of the homes that I like, and ideally right now is where I started out, was single family homes. They are a good investment. You can unload them quick, and they don't come with a lot of headaches, and depending on the neighborhood they might be in. Compare that to a duplex, and if the duplex isn't in the right area, or a triplex or a quadplex, if these are not in the right area and you're going to put tenants in them, you got to make sure that the tenants get along. And you could have a triplex, for example, and the median age is 32 across the board, and then somebody moves out and you move in grandma and they don't like the neighborhood cookouts on Friday night, for example, and that could cause an issue. So having a brick wall between the homes versus a strip of grass is a huge issue for some. Now, that may be your cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea, but some people may be really good at managing single family or duplexes, and that's where they focus, and that's awesome. There's some benefits to that as well, and the fact that you have one roof, and I can't say that word correctly. I don't know why. It's just something from coming from Wisconsin, I guess. But you might have one lawn service, because you're going to have to probably pay for lawn service, because your tenants are not going to cut the grass. They typically don't. Somebody will, somebody won't, then they'll complain to you. So if you were to include those amenities in your purchase or your rent to the tenants, there's some benefits in that. Again, you may not be into multi-family type duplexes or triplexes, but consider these as currency for a future opportunity. If you found a really good deal and you're like, I don't want to deal with it, you could get it under contract, you could wholesale it, you could turn around and use it with another deal. So for example, maybe you've got a nice quad in a nice area, or it's an okay area, but you know somebody that's got a really nice house or two houses that you want. You guys could come up with some terms and trade those properties and get yourself into something that you enjoy better. So everything is a possibility. So don't just discount it out. Look at it. I don't care for the multi, triplex, duplex, and quads. Again, it's not my thing, but if it was on the beach and it was a neat area and I could get some high rents out of it, I may consider it, but I've gotten to the point where I want easy. Condominiums, here's a headache, maybe, maybe not. You may not have a problem with it, but I do. I won't own a condo in a condominium complex. I don't have a problem master leasing one. And the benefits of master leasing a condominium versus owning it is you can walk away if you need to. You're going to have headache with the HOA or the community managers and the Gestapos, because they're going to try to control the situation. And when it comes to the condominium boards, they, for some reason, just have a thorn in their side for rental property or rental units. I'll give you an example. I have and this isn't an HOA, but I have a single family home over in Tampa here in the West Chase area. And the owner's going to move back into the home. But him and I were talking yesterday, and he said, he goes, Matt, as soon as I moved into this house, they were on me to plant a tree. And I looked around, I'm like, where are you going to plant a tree? I said, you got a forest behind the home, and in the front, you got a big oak covering the lawn, and you got a big oak over here. He goes, no, they wanted something over there. And I said, yeah, but it's going to interfere with the other tree. He ended up planting a crepe myrtle, which was acceptable to the HOA. But he went back to them and says, he goes, I just bought the house a week ago and title went through everything. You told them there were no violations. So after 22 years, I've got a violation and I just moved in. So HOAs can play games. What happened, I guarantee you what happened is that house came up for for on the radar as being sold. Somebody came into the deal and like, well, let's go check on it. And you know, the lady drove by on Tuesday, wrote down what was wrong with it, and sent it off. I've got another home in the same neighborhood that is constantly getting beat down. We placed the sod twice. There was a little bit of haze on the paint. They made us repaint. So at the end of the day, looking around, you're like, well, wait a minute, the neighbor's house is dirtier than mine. I've got the best looking house on the street, but yet I'm getting beat down. And I've had the conversation with the HOA and they just don't care. So my point is, HOAs are tough. You never can develop a relationship with the manager because by the time you do, she's been fired or replaced or a new company comes in. So be very careful with the condominiums and the HOAs. Mobile homes and parks. I've purchased a park in a home before and the lot rent is, you know, it has taken a lot of money out of my pocket when it's been vacant. And it was only $350 a month, but I got the unit for $1,000. I turned around and rented it for 2 years. And I think I made, you know, a couple $100 a month by renting it out for $600 a month. But lot rent was $300, and I think you got $300 extra. But you got to recover cost to repair it. But whenever it does go vacant, you've got headaches with the manager. Now, if you're going to do that kind of thing, you need to make sure that you're going to be working with the park manager and try to get some concessions from them so that you're not getting nailed right away. Maybe you can get a month free. Maybe you can offer to bring in a brand new mobile and you're going to find a way to finance it to an end user, that sort of thing. There's a lot of things you can do with mobile home parks. I'm not involved in parks anymore right now. I do own a mobile on land and I've bought 2 mobiles before, and I'll get into that a little bit later where we ended up with a house as well. Parks, I'm quite intrigued with mobile home parks. I haven't purchased any. They come with and without mobiles. I like the ones that don't come with mobiles, but they have residents who own the mobiles. So you're basically renting the dirt. I think size is something to consider when you look at that type of thing. There's because if you own the mobiles and the park, you may want to update them. And you could have a little pushback from your local ordinances. So you need to make sure you understand that when it comes to the parks. If you're really looking to learn a lot more about parks, sorry, my dogs are barking. I do apologize. Adrian Smoot, he teaches a really cool class on mobile homes and parks. And then there's a mobile home university, which I've gone through and I've learned a lot. But they say you can't replace mobiles on the land. There's 3 Supreme Court cases that I learned through mobile home university that said that the city ordinances or the cities had lost and they cannot stop them from replacing a mobile on land. They don't quote me on that. I mean, that was something I picked up from that class. Do your own homework. But the Supreme Court seems to have a little bit of power in that discretion. You know, considering that mobile homes are lower income housing, that's the ideal reason I think why they were able to get that pushed through. City ordinances and communities do not like mobile home parks. From what I gather, it's a taxing issue because they can't tax it like they do an apartment building or a community of homes. The numbers aren't there. So when they have a mobile home park and a bunch of kids move in and go and fill the school, they're not getting the dollars per student that they are getting from a neighborhood where a whole family may live. So the bigger picture there is you need to be aware of all that when you start to go in to buy something. So do your homework on a mobile home park before you buy it. I recommend not buying the mobiles. If you buy the home with you buy the park with the mobiles, you may want to just give them back to the people living in them or find a way to sell it to them through some sort of brokerage. But I don't want that headache myself personally, but maybe again, you're okay with it. Just depends where you're at in this stage. Apartments, small or big. Again, you're dealing with multiple units. I probably wouldn't do anything less than 16 apartments at one time. I did have an apartment that I master leased several years ago. It was only 9 units. So I got to watch the numbers. I got to watch the rents. It wasn't in the most ideal area. I got to deal with a lot of the frustrations of the tenants and so forth. There was somebody got shot right after we sold it on the property. and because the police called me and asked how to access the cameras we put in. Point being is I master leased that, and I was managing that for myself because I master leased it, and I ran it. Oh, I think we ran it for 2 years, and there was a fire in one of the units. So we brought in Stress-Free Construction, who did the insurance repair job, and it was an interesting deal because I learned a lot. On commercial properties, there's different types of insurances you can get. And this was an older building, and the one unit burned up, and the city came back after everything was done and said, you need to do, you have to upgrade the systems here to meet city code requirements as of today. And they had to come out of pocket for those upgrades because their insurance policy did not have that coverage in there based on the fire. It was just billed back to, I guess, original. I'm not an insurance guy. The point is, understand what insurance you're getting when it comes to these types of properties. The apartment didn't have what it needed to cover the cost to do the repair properly. So the owners had a bill of 20-some thousand as additional cost to the contractor. They didn't have the money. So an opportunity kind of arose for me as I had the cash, and I told them, I said, listen, I'll come in as part owner. I'll take over, and I'll still manage the property as I've been doing, but I won't charge any fees for it since I'll be partner on the deal. And they said, no, we'll give you, instead of 33%, we'll give you 25% ownership, and we'll give you 5% management. So you're still getting compensated through your master lease. So we worked that all out. So it was still that way. Being that I was an owner, my company master leased the property. At the end of the day, a year later, we sold the property, and I put 25 grand in, and I walked away with 75. But learning from that, we ended up realizing we needed the proper insurance on a property. Now, you may be rich and lucrative and have fat pockets and can cover that cost and not worry about paying that extra money. But I think when you get into these bigger properties, you may want to consider some insurances. And I know it's not cheap, but if you do have a fire, you're going to have the coverage for it. So there's big apartments, you have more units to help cover when you go negative, or if you got some vacancies. So you can understand how an apartment may be more desirable over a single family home, because when the single family home goes vacant, you have no income coming in. Of course, your nut might be a lot less to cover than an apartment, but an apartment usually has vacancy really figured into the numbers. So you could go roughly 5 to 10% vacant and still have cash coming in. I understand going bigger is better, and the same thing with apartments, but that takes syndication. That's where you got to put money together and you bring in some big dogs, and that gets a little bit more dicey, and you have some reporting to do. I'm not in that field, but I'm intrigued by it and I've studied it, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. Self-storage, I think, is an awesome place to play in. It is a hot commodity right now. If you ask me, everybody seems to be trending towards that. It has a lot of people coming into play. There's automation involved. There's no toilets to deal with. It's basically a light, a garage door, and a lock. You can control them from a distance. If you can find maybe one person on the ground in an area to help you do some minor lock swap outs or just check on it, with cameras, with kiosk, with all these different types of technology, you really don't even need to live near them. The storage rebellion has been great. I've taken some classes on that, and I'm tending to look to more of that, if you will, as well. But I just wanted to share some of that information. And then flexi storage is another area that I found interesting, and that's where you have a strip of buildings, and it's not necessarily people living in them, but what they'll do is park their lawnmowers. They'll have a cabinet shop in there. You might have a painter that keeps all his supplies and tools there. It could be an upholstery shop. So them sort of types of locations are great for that. And if there's an eviction in commercial, it's a lot different than it comes down to people. So there's no emotion involved when you're dealing with these more commercial type things. Again, every industry has its ups and downs. So if you're going to find something, study it. I gave you just a small glimpse of what you can do in real estate. There's a million different avenues you can take. If I give you any advice, would be to focus on something and just work that area until you really understand it. And if you get tired of it, it's time to switch, explore other ones. But don't try to do all these. You know, you may do single family and duplexes be fine, but I would be very careful in trying to do single family apartments and storage. I think you would run yourself ragged. So if you guys got any questions, put them in a chat. And how are we doing, Veronica?
We're doing good in time. Yes, I think we have 5 minutes for questions if anybody has anything related to the type of investment.
Yeah, let us know. And you can put them in a chat and I'll be glad to answer them and go from there. So for basically this, I'm going to try to just focus on single family residential stuff. That's what I really know, but I wanted to just share with you some other things that you can do, because I'm not just about management. I want you to go out and explore things, learn from other managers and other friends and other investors, what they're doing. I was very centered on single family, nothing wrong with that, but I realized there's a whole world of investing out there, and I really became intrigued by it and got excited about it. So I'm always trying to learn more, and I may go into something else at some point, but right now this is what we're doing. Targeting a neighborhood when it comes to a single family home, you always heard location, 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 right? And it is truly important. One of the things that I look for in a neighborhood that I didn't understand when I started out was you got to find nice homes that are around good schools, that are close to a church, family oriented, good grocery stores, understand the culture. Could be a Spanish neighborhood, could, you know, they all have different neighborhoods. So if you're going to go into a different type of culture, understand their culture, understand what they do. Don't just go in and try to change their ways, because you're not going to do it. I'm not trying to get dealt with fair housing or anything, but there is a thing called culture out there, and we all come from different backgrounds, and you need to understand that. In neighborhoods, change and be a chameleon and change with them. Avoid the war zones. And I say that because I started out in them, but nowadays it's really dangerous. I mean, I've found counterfeit money, I found drugs, and I found guns and bullets, I found dead people, I've dealt with drug overdoses. So, and you find it in anything, but it's not fun. And when you got kids and you're going out and then you got to take your clothes and shoes off before you come into the house because the house is infested with cockroaches, that's nothing. Who wants to deal with that? But there is somebody that might, and it's not me anymore, but I've done it. And cockroaches are nasty. I mean, some of these guys wear suits and ties. You turn the lights on and they scatter. Just a little bit about cockroaches. If you're going to go into those neighborhoods where cockroaches like to live, get rid of anything electronic. Remove the electronic thermostat. I just looked at mine. Remove the electronic thermostat. Remove the electronic stove, dashboards. Go to basic stuff, because the roaches go into them. Electronic boards, they sit on them and they urinate and feces all over those boards and they short out. I've replaced so many thermostats. So you start to realize, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this type of an investment. So avoid the war zones and where you got low end people not taking care of the home. You're going to work harder, but you may be into that, and it's a good way to break into it. But fentanyl is bad, and apparently you can just see the stuff and it'll kill you, and it doesn't take anything but a grain of salt apparently or less to kill you. So I look at that and I'm like, I don't want to go there. So we don't work with them types of neighborhoods anymore. Understand your population when you're going to go into an area to invest. And I'll go over why I'm doing this on the next slide a little bit, but all these things you need to understand. Population is important. Florida's booming, like Texas is booming. There's probably areas of California where people are leaving. Same with New York and other areas of the country. So things are driven. There's reasons, political, could be they're drying up on resources, whatever it may be. You and I can't control that, but we can control where we invest. And it's very important to look at neighborhoods that are growing, because you don't want to go buy a house in a neighborhood where they're losing residents and they've got a surplus of housing and you can't find a tenant for it, or you can't get the rent to pay for the home. So that's the reason why you want to look for that. I like the urban areas that are around Starbucks. Right now we've got a Whole Foods over here. Those areas are great. People love to be around that. We've got the Riverwalk. Downtown Tampa is booming. and it's more condo and apartments, but you get some houses around that river and around them areas, and people like to just get in the car and drive 5 minutes to get close to them areas. Where I live personally, I'm ideal. I'm 30 minutes from the beaches. I can get to Orlando in an hour and a half. I can get to the airport in 5 minutes. I mean, them are types of properties you want to buy. And if you're going to go to Airbnb route, that's very important as well. So local rules and ordinances, I talked a little bit about that, going back into the types of properties. I don't know about you guys, but things come east and west, and we're dealing with a lot of tenant advocacy groups. And you may have saw that I posted on the internet some meetings coming up with the city in St. Petersburg or Tampa, and we're just trying to get more voiced opinions out there. And the advocacy groups are really strong. They get and bend the ear of the county commissioners, and they tell them, look, we need rent control, we need some help with this, we need some help with that. What they have right now is we have a set of rules, or a bill of rights, tenant bill of rights, that says in St. Pete that you must let them know before you charge a late fee what the late fee is going to be. Well, I mean, it's in the lease, but you still need to do that. And you have to give them this piece of paper and let them know what the bill of rights are. Same thing in Hillsborough. So getting on with these ordinances, they're getting a lot more into what we're doing. So going back to the last slide, when I talked about it's nice there's no people in storage, or with the mobile home parks where you don't own the home, you're just renting the land. There's some benefits to that versus owning a home and dealing with the tenants. So if you're going to deal with tenants, you just need to know how to do the game or hire a manager. And we'll get into that at the end here. Again, a desirable place to invest. If you're in an area where people want to live, it's a great place to invest. Just be careful not to get caught up and buy too expensive where it doesn't make sense. Now, if the numbers for Airbnb work, great, but for long-term rental, it's a lot different. The cash flow is a little bit less, so you got to be aware of that. I don't necessarily like the big 2-story homes in neighborhoods because they're a lot more work to turn them, but the nice, simple, single family, single level, 3-bedroom house works great. 2-bedroom, 1-bedrooms are also very awesome homes. You're going to get a lot of young people that'll go into them. They take care of the home. The kids ain't beating them up, and they're great investments. So don't think you need a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom. The more bedrooms you get, the more expensive it is to turn a property. And that's where it's gotten crazy right now. So find a good neighborhood. People will come to you. Do you want to go with the HOA or not? That's another one. Again, HOAs, they can control your life. And there's reasons why we don't work with HOAs as much. But again, it could be currency for another deal. Just understand if it's a single family home or a row house where it's not connecting walls and it still has an HOA, I highly recommend you include the lawn service involved in it. And then how many rentals are in the area is another important thing, because if you're going to go into an area where there's a ton of rentals, then it takes away from the community, if you will, the families living there long term. A lot of the war zones, unfortunately, are a bunch of rentals, and you'll see where the houses aren't taken care of as well as you might want to take care of your home, and so that's very important. So you've identified a neighborhood is the goal. Once you identify the neighborhood, you want to run the numbers. You want to underwrite the deal. And the reason I say this is you may not be doing anything, or you may be looking to do something, but if you understand how much rent is coming in, what the taxes of a property are, what property insurance, flood insurance, pool service, your management versus doing yourself, cost of HOA, lawn care, and you figure out what's left, you'll have a pretty good sense of where you want to be. And I'll give you an example. The house that we have over in West Chase that I was just talking about, since I was talking about it, we started to include lawn service, and it runs $130 a month. And then we also have another $100 bill a month for the treatment of the grass. The tenant, I tried to work with tenants in the past, and they just don't do it. They won't do it. And you can try to enforce your lease all you want all day long. You're not going to go to court. You're not going to provide a 7-day notice. You're not going to get what you want. And you can try to replace the tenant with somebody different. You're going to end up with other problems. It's very difficult sometimes, especially in Florida. Now, if you're up north of Wisconsin, you got black dirt, that grass grows and you don't have to do anything to it. It's just every area is different. We have very sandy grass here, and it gets a lot of weeds if you don't take care of it. And that's what we end up dealing with. HOAs love to go around and say, weed, done, gone. Give you a, you need to get new lawn, you need to get, here's your nasty gram, all that kind of thing comes out. And we replaced the sod twice because they kept getting on us about it. And we finally brought in a third party to manage the grass and the treatment of it. Went through 2 different treatment companies and 2 lawn services until we got it right. Drove by the other day, it looks pretty good. And it takes a lot more of your time to make sure it's up to speed and in good shape. Looking at the pool service, I don't mind pool homes. To own them is a little bit more scary. We've increased the liability insurance on properties that we own that are owned with that have pools. Including pool service is very important. Trying to get a tenant to maintain the pool, it can be done, but you're dealing with chemistry. And if that pool is not cared for properly, I think it's the Marsite in there can deteriorate. If they don't take care of the balance of the pH, they put too much muriatic acid in there, they don't take care of the cyanuric acid or the alkalinity, it can deteriorate a pool. And before you know it, you're spending $7-8 grand to resurface it. I'm sure that takes time, but I'm dealing with one right now. And I'm trying to get the owner to take care of this, but he won't. And I'm waiting for him to give me an answer. And I'm having to negotiate that. At the end of the day, I want the pool chemistry to be balanced, because if the tenant's going to put their children in there to swim, I want it to be okay. And if you're going to have a pool, make sure there's a pool fence up. But these are all things you need to understand. So these pool service is going to cost you about $100. And then management, it probably on average, you go around, you're going to find anywhere from 7 to 12%. And to make things simple, just put a 10 on there and figure out what it costs to manage it. Even if you're going to do it yourself, put 10% on there. Because if someday comes and you can't get out of the house to go do something, you've got 10% in there as a backup. You can call somebody like me or somebody else to take on the management for you, and you can chill. If you're an ender, that's probably ideal. You don't want to be dealing with that anymore. So we got taxes. In Florida, they're about 2% of the sale price. So if you bought a $500,000 home, yeah, you're going to probably pay about 10 grand a year, I guess. And that's a lot of money. So they just sold the house next door to me. It was $535,000. He's got $10,000 a year on that. Now values could drop with the higher interest rates right now, but they may drop 10-15%. It's not going to make a hell of a difference on his tax bill, but that's a lot of money to pay towards taxes. So again, that's going back to identifying, will this property work for you? Is this the right neighborhood for me? So at the end of the day, you add all this up, subtract, you got the rent, and you subtract all these expenses from the rent, and what do you got left? And you got to consider the financing too. They always say NOI is everything before the financing. At the end of the day, I really don't care what's going to go into my pocket. I mean, I'm looking for cash flow right now. I'm not looking to build equity in the States. So I want cash flow. I got to make sure this is going to put some money in my pocket every month. If I'm trying to build equity, I guess it's a different story, but building your estate kind of comes after you've got the cash flow. So make sure you got cash flow, then work on the estate. If there's nothing left on this, go on to write another property. Now, I'm not saying that you go out and you got to find a property to do this with. I'm saying just go out, drive around and pick up an address, go on the internet, pull up the information, say, I'm going to write the numbers on this property. So for example, if I pick up 3502 Bray Road, I'm looking at it and I know that neighborhood is in an area I like to invest, I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to look at Zillow. I'll look at all these different areas to figure out what it might cost to rent it. And speaking of that, let me get to the next slide here, but I'll look at the number of bedrooms, the cosmetics of a home. I'll look at Rentometer, Zillow, and rentals, and I'll try to understand what a home will rent for. And when I start to see that I know that type of home rents for $1,500, I know my expenses are XYZ, I can start to determine whether I can make a deal happen there or not. So you need to look at the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms. These all provide value. You want, when you're looking at properties, you may come across a 2-1 or a 3-1. Don't discount it because it's got one bathroom. look at it and see if you can add a second bathroom. We were able to add a bathroom and split a laundry room one time with a home. We went in and we had a hard time renting this house all the time. And I went into it and I looked, the laundry room was like 10 by 12. It was a huge laundry room. And it was like a old enclosed porch that they had done years ago, but it was cemented, blocked, and had good solid roof on it. We went in, split the room in half, put a toilet and a sink and a shower in there. And I think the cost at the time was about $3,000. The sewer line was right outside this door, so it was very convenient to do that. So don't be afraid to look at it from that perspective, because if you can add value, you can increase the rent, but you also make that home more desirable for somebody looking to move into it. I've got a wife and 2 kids. I couldn't imagine living in a 1-bathroom home. There's just no way. My daughter takes a shower twice a day. My son's in the bathroom 4 times a day. It's crazy. So especially in the morning, it relieves stress from the family living there, and it gives them a lot more amenities. The other thing is cosmetics. We look at these homes and we're trying to figure out what they can rent for. We're like, oh, that house is rent for $2,500. Well, yeah, I mean, it's actually got granite countertops and stainless steel. Yours has got Formica from 1975, and the spare room's got, I don't know, drop-in ceilings, and it's they got water stains on them. So you got to look at all that. You can't just get what somebody else is getting. You got to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. And you don't want to be comparing them to rotten oranges, because it's not going to rent the same. Different markets, of course, breed different tenants. And some people may be, I don't care, I just need something, and they'll pay whatever. And that's kind of what we just came out of. With all the inflation that went on and all the rents that went up from COVID in 2020 and 2021, we would rent a house as soon as we put it on the market. And we would have, one house I had 15 different people apply. And it actually took the first person because they were the best out of the best. But at the end of the day, markets can dictate how fast you'll rent a home. And if the home isn't cosmetically appealing in a down market, it's going to struggle to rent. So if you've got financing on it, you got to be careful on what you're going to rent it for. Again, just picking a house out of nowhere, or an apartment building out of nowhere, or a mobile home park out of nowhere, and running the numbers. You don't have to own it. Run the numbers. Call your insurance guy. Call your tax guy what it would cost if you were to buy it today. Talk to your community leaders and say, if I bought a mobile home park in your community, how's it work if I want to replace a mobile? Do all that now before you find the deal, if you like. If you're struggling to get into it, but the more knowledge you build, and the more comfortable you will become when you find an opportunity, and the opportunity will actually just show up on a silver platter to a certain degree. Because when you walk into a cold, you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but the fact that you've studied things for the last 3-4 months, and you really know this neighborhood rents for $1,500 for a 2-bedroom, $1,680 for a 3-bedroom. Mobile homes over here rent for $850 a month. The 3 bedrooms rent for $1,000 a month. That kind of thing comes into play, and you start to really understand, hey, I don't have any problem replacing a mobile there, but over here I will. When you do that and you walk up and you see a deal, you're like, you know what? I know I can do this. I can get in here and I can paint it. It's going to cost me about $4,000 to do that. It's going to rent for $800 a month, and I can have this thing up and going in 2 weeks because I got a hold of a buddy who's willing to help me out and get it done, and either do it yourself or hire it done. That's a whole new ball game there, as working with vendors, of course. But my point is, study the markets and learn about the area, and you will become entrenched with the data, and you'll just be able to make a decision a lot quicker and more intelligently about what you're about to purchase. So I don't know if I'm going too fast. I might be, but I do apologize, and I'll open it back up. Anybody got any questions? I'm willing to take some. I can't see what people are writing, unfortunately, because of the way my screen is. So
there is nothing on the chat. I think we're good to go unless anybody has a specific question.
Okay. So how do I find the deals, and how do other people find deals? I think every which way you can. Letters are great. We did a mailing campaign, and I did it once or twice only, and it was on some funky stationery. And I sent it out and I didn't get no hits on it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I don't know, maybe a year or two later, I got a call from a guy and he goes, I got your letter and I want to sell my house. I'm like, okay. And I got a bunch of letters and postcards and I saw yours and I called you. So, okay. So I went over, but before I went over, it's a funny story. I have a friend investor who called me, says, hey, I'm going to be in your neighborhood today. I'm going to go look at a house. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that's great. Me too. And he goes, huh? I said, yeah, I'm going to go look at a house too. I said, where are you going? He goes, I'm going over by Pocahontas. I'm like, well, that's where I'm going. And so the guy had called every card and letter he had gotten. And of course, me and this other guy, we market in similar areas and he lives across the other side of town. I live on this side of town. So I went over, I actually had an appointment before he did. And I wasn't trying to beat him to the punch or anything. I went in, it was a great house. The guy just put a roof on it. He hadn't lived in it in 7 years. Some of you may have heard this story. The point being the letter made it happen. And the house was just full of all his stuff. He found a new girlfriend, moved in with her, was shacking up with her, decided to just forget about this place. The grass was 6 feet tall. There was a car parked in the front yard. It was a Jeep, a tree growing through it. The backyard had, I don't know, 5 feet of just stuff within the grass. So the house was probably worth 125, all shined up. We went in and before I could even say anything, the guy, and again, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you got to really listen. You go in and say, what's going on? And we brought the kids and the wife and I were both there. And he goes, I want to net 75K and that's it. I want to walk away with 75K, no less. That's after you take care of all the costs. And I'm like, okay. This ended up being a cash deal for us, but we borrowed the money from a private lender. So it wasn't our cash. So we made it work. And we ended up at the end of the day, he didn't want to finance, he didn't want to do a lease, he wanted to just walk away. So he put a brand new roof on it. We took over and we got in there. Well, then I had to replumb the house because there was a water pipe underneath the home that broke and leaked. So we redid that. And then we had to go in and fix a plumbing drain, bust up part of the floor. So we did that. And it needed an air conditioner, then a water heater. Then I did all the windows. All this other stuff came a lot actually before the tenants moved, after the tenants moved in, but the windows and the painting and the cleanup took place before the tenants moved in. Point being is the letter worked. It was a simple letter, just says I'm looking for a home in the neighborhood. I've got a few bucks. I'm ready to reinvest. I've only got some time, blah, blah, blah. But he still bought it, still called me. So they do hold on to stuff like that. Word of mouth, friends and family can be great referrals for you. They can get you word of mouth as well through other things. So I've been to coffee meetings and I've had other investors share my name to people when I was starting out, and I'm very grateful for it. But I'm telling you, those meetings and telling people are very valuable. If you don't show up all the time, you're not going to be on the radar. But when you show up all the time, you're going to be on the radar. And the more you show up, the more you're going to get referrals. I personally have had some things I can't get out much lately, but there's a lot of good people out there that don't want to do this and have the money, have the investments. They just want to offload some of the problems. So you can get part of the deal or get an option on a deal or work a deal and flip it, fix it, rent it, man. There's a lot of different ways you can use the word of mouth. At 4502 Bray Road, I mentioned earlier, my niece kept telling me about this property. And I think she told me about it for 3 or 4 years. I'm like, whatever. I don't know why I never went over. And I already owned a house in the neighborhood. So one day I get a call and they said, you got to come over. They're over here. And I had to go give them water. They were exhausted. They're cleaning up the yard. And it's like, okay, so we go over and the wife and I both go in and she's like my lucky charm. So I take her with me and the kids are there again. And they're saying that we've got this house and we don't know what to do with it. We're living over here. I got to get the windows in my other house taken care of. I got a roof leak over there. I don't have the money to put into this one. And we're dealing with the city and it hasn't been rented in 5 years. We had somebody put a new kitchen in it. And I walked in and the kitchen appliance is all brand new with stickers. It needed some work. It needed some paint and some cleanup on the exterior. And so we started chit-chatting, and I don't know if you listened, but she had a pain point. She needed money for a roof on her house, and she had windows that she wanted to replace. So I had two properties we were getting ready to sell, and I owned 1/3 of each of these properties. And these properties that I was getting ready to sell were owned by an owner of mine who went through a divorce, and he gave them to his ex-wife as part of the divorce settlement. So I retained ownership of about 7 houses. And then she came to me and wanted to sell them. I offered to buy them. I offered a performance mortgage, and that's basically paying somebody half of what I collect when I collect it, if I collect it. And she didn't want that. She goes, I want to buy a house. I said, well, you got 7 of them. Why do you want to buy another one? Why do you want to sell these and buy another one? And she goes, I want to live close to the school where my kids go. And so that was the issue. That was her pain point. She needed money out of that deal to make that happen. I'm like, well, okay. So we bought those properties. We ran them. We bought them both, all 4 of them for like 120,000. We sold them off over time. So we're down to 2 left. I'm 1/3 owner in these 2 houses out of the 4 we originally bought. Now today in that market, they were worth 150 each. And so I had 1/3 of that coming to me on 2 of those deals. And so when we sold the first one, we sold the first one in January, and we identified this property at 4502 Bray Road as our target property for the 1031 exchange. And so then I had 180 days to close that. And then I waited for the other one to close so I could close it. But in the meantime, I lent the seller of 4502 Bray Road $16,000 to get her roof fixed. And then when we finalized the purchase, we settled all that stuff. But she was happy because she got her roof fixed. We ended up with a nice house that we could move these 2 sales into and avoid paying tax. And we turned around and got that house up and going and renting for $1,500 a month. So I don't even know what time it is, but
10:50.
I think we'll take a break in about 5 minutes if that's okay. I do apologize. I'll try to get through this here a little bit, and or we can come back into it in a minute. But I wanted to share these stories about these properties because I think everyone is unique, and that means that not every deal is the same. We get a lot of opportunities from brokers and agents. And if you're just looking to build a cash flowing portfolio and you're licensed or not, I still think you can work with real estate agents because they're there to be paid. They will shop and hunt for you. A lot of them are hungry. If you can find somebody who understands your mindset as an entrepreneur, that you're going to want to look for a property that you can lease and do something with the right to sublease it through subleasing it. That's an agent you'll want to work with. Listen, you can take a house and lease it with the right to sublease it to an occupant tenant. I'm seeing people take houses and master lease them, and they're subletting them out through the Airbnb. Imagine that. You have no money in the investment. You just got to put the furniture in it, and you turn around and lease it out on Airbnb. Man, what a cash cow. But yet you did a fixed lease, and maybe you've guaranteed that to the owner. You're going to pay him market rents. I mean, whether it's rented or not, this guy's getting market rents and you've Airbnb it. I mean, there's a story to be had there. So if you're not looking at that, I recommend at least explore that. Brokers can help you find those deals. Insurance agents. I work with a couple different people through networking and that sort of thing. Insurance agents are great because they're dealing with guys that are financing or insuring property, if you will. I had a guy who had 40 properties through one insurance agent. He told me about this guy, and I reached out to the guy, and he didn't, whatever. A year and a half later, this guy calls me back, and he says, hey, I kind of blew you off a year and a half ago, and we kind of laughed about it, but he goes, I need to move, man. I can't stand the people I'm with. I need to get into a new management company. And so we chatted, and we ended up taking that particular portfolio over of 40 doors, and we managed it. Now, this package of homes was South St. Pete. It was a mixed bag. So it was very hard in some areas to deal with, and other stuff was fine. But it worked well. And then a year or two later, it came that he sold that package off to two other owners, and we split it up. And then I dealt with them new owners, and I transitioned with that because my agreement doesn't allow them to fire me on certain things. So, and they wanted to retain me since I had the knowledge of the home. But those relationships actually soiled over time because they didn't have the mindset to make the repairs that the homes needed. And when I get to a point where people do not want to play the game right, I'm not gonna waste my time on it. There's plenty of people out there that play this game the right way and will fix something when it needs to be fixed. Single family homes that barely bring any income in and are owned by people that don't have the resources to put the money up to fix it when it needs it, they're going to cost you time and money. So avoid those type of homes. But again, that could be for you where you come in and give them some money as part owner and help them. So there's a lot of ways you can put yourself into a deal, and you got to be open to doing so. And if you don't have the money, ask around. And if you're in the trenches, you got friends that have money. There's a lot of money out there sitting idle. So many people are afraid to invest it. Estate attorneys. I'll go back to that when we come back from break. Postcards. I send out postcards every month to a local area, and I'll end on this for right now. I'll come back in 5 minutes. The postcards that I send out go to homes that are only 20 years old or newer. I don't like pre-78, but the idea is I have a specific model that I'm after. Single floor. I don't want a 2-story, no pool. It could be 1, 2, 3 bedroom. I don't mind, but I want it to be more like a property that I want to manage in neighborhoods that I want to manage. So it's a dialed in list of about 2,000, and we hit it up every month. And you can send a 6x9, 8.5 by 11 postcard, 8.5 by 5.5 postcard, if you will, for first class. So you can get that back and update your list as well. In those particular markets, you may not get a phone call from that list and you're marketing over there, but your phone will ring out of the blue, or you'll get a website request out of the blue for something over here. It's just, if you're not doing anything, you're not going to get anything, but you could be doing something on the east side of town and the left side of town is going to call you. It's just the way it is. So, let's see what else. If you need to do postcards, I get them from Vistaprint, and I look for a local mail house. One other tidbit before we go. Go to a printing company and ask them if they've got any remnants laying around when it comes to like invitations and cards that they can use for wedding invitations. They're like the little invitation cards, or they're fold over type things, and they fit in a small little like 5x4 or 5x6 envelope. Those are awesome. I used to do a lot of mailings with those. They can run through your printer, and you can handwrite on them. So you keep them in the car, and you can just throw it a little handwrite. Hey, my name's Matt. I just drove past your house on Glenside, and I noticed the grass is kind of long, and I just knew it was a rental. When I looked it up in Property Appraiser, I found that your address was out of town. You need any help with this? Let me know. I'm here to help. And that's how you can get in front of people. The more you do that and you track that, the more you'll end up with some history that you can work with, and eventually people will call you. Let's take a 5-minute break, and I hope you guys are doing okay. Come back with some questions. We'll get into a little bit more of how we find the deals, because there's a lot here, and then we'll get into how we make the offer and go through some other things on management. So, and
then I have Frank, accounting, quick B, apartment buildings, pros and cons. The accounting part, we're actually talking about a CPA, somebody who understands investment. I think that's very specific. Matt, I know your accountant works more with real estate people as opposed to business owners, right?
No, I could put out his information if somebody's looking. He's in Florida. He's pretty busy right now, but I'm sure he's growing, and he just moved. But I use Justin Rosen in Tampa and South Tampa CPA. I moved to a local guy. But when it comes to apartments and managing the accounting, the software really can help you out. And that I've been using something called Rentvine. It's new. I used to use Appfolio. I used it for 10, 12 years. Appfolio got really expensive. Rentvine is really reasonable, and it's a newer software. They're really starting to get some headway with some of the technology in it. There's other ones out there as well. I can't speak for them, but I think like Rent Manager or some of these other ones may be a little bit more better for apartments. But the nice thing about RentVine is you can set up a portfolio specifically for the apartments or a single family home portfolio. Like I manage my personal portfolio that we own in there is separate from stuff I do for other people. I've got a separate bank account for my stuff than I do for other people. I don't want to mingle anything because it's mine. And the nice thing is it comes in and it's really easy to manage. I could put an HOA in here to manage just the HOA and be like the guy that goes out on the board. I could, and I don't have a problem showing you guys the RentVine and going through some stuff with that after we get through this. If you guys would like to see just some basic stuff, I've got dummy property in there under Santa Claus at the North Pole and would love to share you some basics. But if you sign up for my property management class coming up that we'll talk about, we're going to go through a lot of that and go into great detail on how I do things and run my business. So, but a good software I think would help you with the accounting, because at the end of the year, all I do is hit a button, boom, got a nice report. And if you've been doing things throughout the year and you've been reconciling, it's just part of everyday life. And you can have a VA do that for under a couple $100 a week. So,
and I wanted to suggest the accounting, the software is definitely really valuable. That's something that Matt has been sharing with me. And then I wanted to advise for a book. It's called Tax-Free Wealth. It's written by Tom Wheelwright. He's a CPA that worked with Robert Kiyosaki. Again, the name of the book is Tax-Free Wealth. And if you follow the guy on YouTube, he has really good podcasts, and it's all directed about CPA and understanding property investment.
Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, guys, and don't be afraid to open your minds up to it. I've heard of people locking themselves in a basement for 2 weeks and studying stuff on YouTube, getting through the minutia. There's good and bad stuff on YouTube. The point is you can really educate yourself. All you got to do is put the time in. And if you can do that, I mean, your life is only so long. And if you get to an age, you're like, shit, I wish I would have done more. Start doing it now. I don't care how old you are. You can still buy houses. I think Pete Fortunato tells this story about this lady. She's 100 years old. She's bought 3 houses. Man, that bank has got a lot of faith in her age. And I love that. I mean, 30-year mortgage this lady's got, apparently. She just insane. But the house will go somewhere, and it was a good buy. So you can still do this at any age. Don't quit on yourself. Christ, that's when we end up in the hospital.
Absolutely.
What other questions you got?
I have a question from Nitya. He's saying if there is any suggestions about master leases.
Yeah, I think there's some suggestions on master leases, and that might be on how you make your offer. And we can talk a little bit more about that. I think I'm going to do that in the next section. But master leasing, and there's a lot of people probably hear from David's class that I think it's a great tool. Leases are very unique. There's so many different types of leases. It's not just like, oh, I want a lease option and do this or do that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can utilize a lease, and it buys you time. It can buy you future opportunity. It can give you an out. It can be just a lot of different ways that you can utilize it. The best one that I've worked was the master lease, where you lease a property from Joe and you sublease it to Larry. And you're the guy in the middle, and you're taking a little bit of the spread. Similar to wrapping a mortgage, I guess. I mean, you're wrapping it with a master lease, and you got a guy on the outside giving you 200, and you're paying somebody on the inside 1,000. It could be based on performance. It could be based on fixed. And when to use that and when not to use that is all personal. It depends how much money you've got for a rainy day. It depends. And when I say rainy day, if it goes vacant, can you afford to make the payment if it's a fixed payment every month, whether it's rented or not? That means that you're taking on a lot more risk versus a performance-based master lease, where you will collect money and pay somebody else only when you collect the money. And that's how I built my business. I started off changing diapers right here in this house. This is my office. I'm still sitting in it 12, 13 years later. Master lease started off with 3 properties from Pete's friend Debbie. It went to 5 properties. Then I met another guy and I master leased 40 properties. But I cut my teeth on Debbie's stuff. But I worked hard. And those were up in Pasco in 2011 and 12. And that was so depressed in that market. I mean, houses next door had windows busted out and I rented them homes, but I made them look good. And I worked hard to get it done. And we did that for about a year for Debbie, and then she wanted to take them back, and I was okay with that. And we worked out a deal. She took them back, and that way she had the cash flow, and they were all leased up. And I think she might have sold a couple of them. Bless her heart. She was a nice lady.
Thank you, Matt. Adding for a question regarding master leases, James, he said that he manages neighborhoods here in Florida. And he wants to see if you can add a description of a standard month split with the owner when the master lease is in place.
I don't think anything's standard. I think it's what you can agree upon. My whole management business has gone flat fee. I don't like percentages, but if you can come up with something that works for both of you, I think it's ideal. I don't walk into a home and say, hey, I want to master lease this property and sublease it out. My whole point when I walk in is got a great house. I'd love to lease it from you. I'll find a nice person to lease it to. And that's what I say. And it doesn't come off like that. I really just roll up and say, hey, I'm Matt. And if I was going to be in the master leasing side of something, I'd be like, I'm not in a position to do property management, but here's what I can do for you. And I think it's much better. You got to spin presentation any way you can spin it to your benefit and their benefit. Them numbers that you guys decide on, they need to be something that works well for you. I've often thought about, if I can't rent it, I'll pay you. I'm in a position now where I can afford to do that. I can pay something every month, whether it's rented or not, but I want more of the upside in the deal every month. So it just depends how far you want to go, how much risk you want to take on. And when I started out, we ended up having about 220 master leased homes, and they ended up, we refined it as time went on. I'm only down to about 70 homes. Some are managed, some are master leased. Very picky on what I will master lease now and manage, because I don't know what my future is going to be, if I will sell my business off one day or not, or what I'll do with it. But the point is, you can do what you want to do and what you feel is right, and make sure that the owner's on the same page. I don't want to tell you how to charge for what you do, or how to, take a part in what you do, but you may prepay a master lease in advance and utilize somebody else's Roth IRA to do that. Bring a partner in, let them take the prepayments, and you give them back every monthly payments every month as a percentage. And by doing so, you get a discount from the guy you're leasing the property from, and you can share in that with somebody who doesn't want to do anything but just collect a little money every month and sit back, and you can take care of the brunt and get a little bit of the deal every month too. So, I mean, everything is on the table. Just think beyond what you're normally used to thinking. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yes. Any other website additional to QuickBooks for accounting?
I used QuickBooks when I started out. It was very decent for what we were doing with 1 or 2, but I use Rentvine. You've got Buildium, you've got Appfolio, which you got to have a minimum door count. There's a lot of them. Yardies out there. There's a lot of free ones out there. For example, I'll provide a service. I don't want to do a sales pitch here on what I do, but we will, if you have a property and you don't want to collect the rent electronically, I'll collect it for you for $39 a month, I think it is. Any phone call I get, I forward the voicemail to you. I don't talk to your tenant. Any maintenance I get, I forward it to you. I don't take care of any maintenance. If you want me to take care of the late fee and go collect late rent, I can do that, but I'm going to charge for it on top of the $39. You want me to take care of all the phone calls and handle the headaches and the maintenance and all that? Pick a plan that's on a monthly plan, either silver, gold, or platinum plan. My point is, you don't need all this software if you want to just pay me $40 a month per door, and I'll do it for you. But I only do that here in Tampa right now, but I could do it elsewhere if need be. And I think that's a neat model. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for you to work with different types of software. And I guess that's all I can say about that right now. You use QuickBooks, you can use a ledger, pen and paper, you can make it work. However it works for you, but technology is your friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would suggest if you can have a mobile application, it's definitely better because say you need to document your expenses. When you get, gas or food or whatever, you need to like snap a picture, collect all that information and have that by the end of the month. And I think QuickBooks is one of the tools that allows you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we do. I should say this, guys. I use QuickBooks to manage my business side of my management business. But for the properties that we manage and the rentals that we master lease, they're all in the same software, Rentvine.
All right. I think we're good to go to continue. I'm sorry, anybody else has questions? Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, Matt, could you repeat that statement you just made?
Well, as I said, I have a business, an LLC that I capture all my business operations in called QuickBooks. And we use QuickBooks Online. I can access it anywhere. And so from a management business or a brokerage, because I'm a broker, I didn't start out this way. I started out as an individual, but I am a broker. And we manage the brokerage under Cavalier Estates in QuickBooks. And then we have the management software. It's another tool that manages all the rents when they come in, all the owner payments, all the maintenance, all the communication with the tenants. The leases are in there. The marketing is in there. So when we got a property, it's tracked through there, and we have it tied to something called Lead Simple. And if you come to my day course, we're going to get into all that, and I'll show you how we utilize that to keep ourselves automated so we don't have to deal a lot of paper chasing.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to some other things. I mentioned I've got some newsletters that I've done. I'll bring them up at the end because I can't see what I'm doing here. I know you guys can probably see me or just see the screen, but I'll bring them up at the end so we can go ahead and discuss them. And if you guys are going to be in, we're setting up this community, and what I want to do is I want to put stuff in that community that we can share and use. And eventually it's going to be a paid member thing. You guys are coming into this thing free because you guys came to my first little class here. I want to bring you in. We'll give you a year on it, and we'll give you access to this stuff. And it's all new, but I want to share what I'm doing and what I've done. And I want to learn from people like you as well. I think it's a two-way road. I don't know everything, and I know we all can benefit from each other. And the more information we can get and access it, but I do want to kind of keep it, I don't want to keep it private, but I want to keep it somewhat under control so it just doesn't flood out to everywhere. I just don't want it to go out like everybody can use it type of thing. I want to make sure people understand what they're doing with it. So I talked about insurance agents, the estate broker. And this is kind of a two-step owner transition. We work with a lot of brokers and real estate agents, and they were giving us 1 to 2 deals a month. And that's a lot. And they were nice homes. The brokers and the realtors have access to a lot of nice properties. They're dealing with a lot of people who have rentals or bought a second home and couldn't sell something. Every market's different. I don't have a crystal ball, but I just know that there's opportunity in every market, and you need to understand how to find that opportunity. And this was a down market. This is a great story. I've told it before. So I get a call from one of my partners, my business partners, and some properties. He's like, hey, listen, I got a call. They got 2 mobile homes and they got a house, and it's in an estate. The guy died. And I'm like, okay. He goes, they're right by your house, by the way. And I said, well, where are they at? And he told me. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, did the guy named Jerome so-and-so own that? And he goes, yeah, it sounds familiar. I met him over there, and I started laughing. 2 years prior, I tried to buy these mobile homes, and the guy wanted 100,000 each, and I couldn't do it. But I made him an offer of 50,000 for each of them. So I gave him 100 grand for both of them instead of 100 each. So we gave him 50,000 for each of them. And it was really just terms of the sale. It's called the layaway program, but you get access to the property. I'm going to make payments, and some point in time, I'm going to own it. It's all it is. There was no interest involved. It was just, I'm going to make You want 50,000, I'll give you 5,000 down. I'm going to take 45,000. I'm going to divide that by how many months I want to pay them. And whatever that number is, I make sure it works. If I collect a certain amount of rent, I can afford to pay that and the taxes, insurance, and everything else. He didn't take the offer. And I'm like, well, okay. You know, I didn't want it that bad, but he goes, I understand you're young, you're energetic. He goes, if I was younger, I'd probably take that offer, Matt. I'm like, okay, well, if he would have got 10 grand that day because I was doing 5 on each one, out of 45 on each of them. And it would have been a $90,000 note, basically 2 different notes. So let's fast forward again to we're looking at the property with the other guy. The guy died. Don't know what he died from. Maybe it was one of those pre-COVID things. It was sad. He was a good guy, but he was an air conditioning guy. And his daughter was involved in the deal. And the mother was still kind of helping the daughter, even though she had been divorced from the father for years. But they all lived on the same road and they were all pretty good, happy-go family. And they had the 2 mobiles, and they actually had a house that he had just taken a 30-year loan out on at 3.5% interest. He borrowed, I don't know what he borrowed, but the payment was like $800. And I looked at that, and the payment was PITI, and I'm like, is this fixed? I said, this isn't an adjustable rate. And they go, no. Maybe it was like $1,200 or $800. Anyway, it was in the number that when I saw that, I knew right away that house is going to make money. I knew the market rents because I had been studying this stuff long enough. I knew them numbers made sense. I knew what insurance was running because I've been running 80 properties at this point in time, and I've been paying other people's insurance bills for them just because they asked me to, and I would get a small fee for paying the bills. But I saw these insurance bills, and I'm like, that house has got this, this, and this. They're all running around $800-900 a month. I knew everything, and I'm like, this is going to work. So again, getting in and digging in and starting to make sense of what you're doing because you're seeing different numbers and you can relate to a situation. You can compare it to a thing you're looking at today, and it allows you to make decisions. So our first order of business was the 2 mobiles, and we're sitting there looking at them. I said, I offered this guy 50 grand each 2 years ago. He wouldn't take it. Now the market's in the dump a little bit. But I said, he originally wanted 100 grand. And I said, what do you want to do? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, let's offer him tax value. We looked it up. Each one was worth 30 grand on the tax assessor site. The mobile homes were a 2006 and a 2011 unit, I think, or a 2007 unit. Anyway, they were all in the 2000s. They're all the hurricane-proof mobiles. They're both on water, but it wasn't a great piece of water. It was really muddy back there, but still, it was considered canal. And we bought those from the estate, and the 60,000 for both of them settled the debts of the estate, leaving the house separate. And I encouraged the mother and the daughter not to sell the home. As much as I would love to buy the home, I thought it was in her best interest to keep this home because she didn't have a lot of money coming in, and I wanted to see her succeed, and her father would have wanted her to have that. They couldn't keep the mobiles. They had to settle some debt. And so we took them on. But the home is right next door. It's 2 houses down from her. She can drive past it. She can look at it. Probably got some emotion tied to it. And it's got a hell of a mortgage on it. I think that house, PITA, is like I said, almost $800-900, and it's making close to $2,500 a month now. But they know that I want to buy that house one day, and I would be willing to buy that house if they ever decided to sell it, because I would love to take over the mortgage. And I'd give them any amount of cash to make something like that work. It's got an awesome mortgage, which is still in the estate of this guy's name somehow or whatever. I don't know how it got settled. I'm not an estate attorney. The point being, a broker referred us to an estate's attorney that had a deal that we bought 2 deals from, and we ended up master leasing another one when we have the so-called stealth option to buy at some point in the future. So these are ways you can find properties. It's all the above. Knocking doors. I've knocked doors. I've had the cops call on me for knocking doors with my kid in the car. And that's a funny story. We're driving around. This lady just comes up in the blue. She starts yelling at me like, what the F are you doing in this neighborhood? And I'm like, whoa. I own a house in the neighborhood already. I'm just driving around because my daughter was sleeping in the back seat. And anybody who's had children knows you do not wake a sleeping baby up out of the car seat. You just let them sleep, drive around. And that's what we did because I didn't want to deal with that orneriness. So I'm like, well, I'm stopping and I'm taking numbers down off of houses. And I'm like, oh, I'll go call them. Now, driving around is not necessarily knocking doors, but you're still driving for dollars, you're walking for dollars, and I've done door knocking as well and left behind cards. But when the cops showed up on this deal, they said, well, yesterday a guy was walking and he was pushing a stroller and he broke into 3 houses. I'm like, well, I guess you can stereotype me. I'm in a nice Suburban with the kid sleeping in the back and I'm not pushing a stroller, but okay. But so that was probably the last time I did any of that, but that's not for me as much as maybe it is for you. Like I said, the postcards work for sale by owner, for rent by owner. You could end up buying a house. You could end up leasing a house. These are great opportunities. And over the weekend, I bet 40 of them go up in my neighborhood on average, maybe 15 per night, 10 per night. It could be a lot less. I think the market's slowed a little bit. We got a lot more rentals available right now, but the point being is you can go into them and you can shop and you can write them down, put them in a spreadsheet. You can start doing data mining and pull up the owner of record and start working it backwards. A lot of them are on Zillow and they got a Zillow phone number. So if you call, it's going to go through that. You won't have the real number. But if you go ahead and pull up the address, you can go into Property Appraiser, find out who owns it, find out their address, send them a postcard. Send them a nice letter, have some of this stuff staged and ready to go. So when you see that deal, you just sit down at the desk, you go scribble, 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 fold it all up and take it out and you put a stamp on it and go. Now you did some prospecting today and it was just one deal. That guy might call you. But if you handwrite those over time like that, it's not much of a burden versus writing 200 letters or 2,000 letters and sending them out. And you're just going to hope to get one out of it. So dialing in on those. I will tell you the for sale by owner and the for rent by owners, that from what I find tend to be a little bit more mindset of do it yourself. They may think they know more than you, and that's possible. But just keep that in mind. You never want to let people know you're the smartest person in the room. Again, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in proportion, listen for their pain point. The guy may live out of town and he can't get it sold, that sort of thing. We had a house at 45 on Blossom Lake that was referred to me by a friend. And he tried to go master lease it and couldn't do it. And so I went up, talked to the lady on the phone. She came in from California and she was here because the city sent her a nastygram all the way to California from Holiday, up where Veronica's at. And, this is a situation where the house is only worth $50,000. It needed $4,000 worth of work. She couldn't sell it and pay a commission unless she took money out of her pocket. And we tried everything. So we came into the deal and looking to buy it. And I told a lady on the phone before I stroke a check for $50,000, my wife needs to see this house. So we went up in person. Again, get face to face as much as you can. Even when you got an argument with somebody, try to meet them. So many people grow big kahunas behind the camera and the phone and social media. But when you get face to face, they tend to calm down and see your real person. They can read your emotion and know you're not trying to be a jerk. And so it's good to get face to face, present your thoughts, put them down on a yellow pad, walk away with them thoughts that you both agree upon, write them up in an offer. Don't change the deal. Get it back to them to look at. If they like it, sign it. If you have to change the deal, meet face to face again and explain why, but don't change it because you found a way to make more money with it and screw them out of something. You agreed to a deal. It was good then. It's good for them now. And if it's still good, make it happen and move on. It's so easy to change a deal after the fact because your brain's working and they're happy the fact that they found somebody that can solve their problem. Don't screw them over. They'll come back to you if you do. We bought that house for $50,000 on a lease with an option. We had 6 years to execute the option and buy it. We bought it in 5 when she was in the hospital getting ready to file bankruptcy. I closed on it for $49,000, paid all closing costs. The day I bought that house, it was worth $89,000. Today it's worth $200,000. I made it come down a little bit because of the market, but those are opportunities that you find from friends and people and postcards and referrals. Exchange meetings. If you don't know what an exchange meeting is, they're really cool. I don't necessarily play in the exchange meeting very often, but I like to go because I like to watch the deals happen. I like to see what transpires. I'm a slow thinker. I like to really think about what I'm doing. That's probably one of my hurdles I need to get over, because when you're in an exchange meeting, you'll see, oh, I offered you, I'm going to borrow money from Veronica to put down on your house, Joe, and I'm going to give you a note for X amount of dollars for a certain period of time, and I'm going to take the house if you're cool with that. And a lot of things like that happen on a piece of paper. It doesn't mean you need to commit to that deal at that point in time. But what an exchange meeting is a bunch of people with that have something, that need something, or have something they don't want anymore, would like to exchange it with somebody else, with some sort of currency. And understand, currency is not dollars. Currency is something for something. Like, I got a pot of coffee, but I ain't got no cups to drink it out of. But Joe's got 2 cups of coffee that has no coffee in it. And I'm like, Joe, you want a free cup of coffee? He's like, sure. We exchange the use of the product. And Joe says, you know what? You can have this cup. I mean, that's a simple exchange, and he gets a cup of coffee out of my coffee, and I get to have the cup. So, I mean, I hope that makes sense. It's just, you're exchanging one thing for another. And at the end of the day, it's not money that necessarily is needed. The deal is where you can create a transaction, and it can be done with notes. It can be done with cars and boats and airplanes, as everybody uses as an example. I see people trading notes, maybe 2 notes for an asset. You got to understand that notes dry up. Houses produce income long term. So depending on where you're at in your game, the note business might be great if you're going to make a business out of buying and selling notes, so you constantly got a stream of cash coming in. But the house will always produce cash flow if it's the right house in the right area and the financing's right. But at some point, the note can dry up. So that's a business you need to keep going with. And I'm not knocking it. I think it's a great business. I just don't understand it all that well. But you can do a lot of things at an exchange meeting. A lot of people will have money that can be lent to buy into other things. You can use other people's money to buy something from somebody else. You could help somebody buy something that doesn't realize that you're putting a deal together, because they want to buy his house and they just don't know how. But you know that you can borrow money from Veronica and make it happen and take a little bit off the top for making that transaction go through. It just depends on how you structure it. And you may not own nothing, but you've just paid yourself for the fact that you knew how to do it. So you get paid for your knowledge, and then you can share how you did it if you want.
Question about exchange meetings. Is there any organization or any website to look
No,
for?
I've asked. There is an exchange meeting that goes on in Tampa on Thursdays. And I don't know, I don't have the website, for example, but I'd be glad to post it on our blog or email afterwards. But if you're in a local area and you go to a local real estate meeting, you can make that into an exchange meeting. I thought about doing it in Tampa. Pete goes, just take Pete Fortunato, who some of you guys know, he told me just take any meeting you're at and make it into an exchange meeting, which makes total sense. I mean, I don't know everything. I mean, your friends are going to share ideas with you, and I'm just sharing what I've learned. But you can go into any meeting, and they usually start off, anybody got anything they want to sell? Anybody got anything they want to buy? Nobody ever talks, but everybody's got something. And then somebody breaks the ice, and all of a sudden, things start going. So be the guy that breaks the ice. Say, you know what? I'm looking for some properties to manage. I'm looking for some properties I can lease up and I can manage for myself. Or I'm looking for a rehab. I've got money sitting in this IRA. I got to get it working by the end of the summer. I promised myself I was going to do it. You got to set deadlines for yourself. So any meeting can become an exchange meeting. An exchange meeting can be between 2 people. It can be done online. It's however you want to do it. So they're great resources, because you'll see a lot of money go across the table or on the board. You'll see a lot of houses go in and out of the deal, and you'll see stuff that may be talked about and never happens. And you might see one day it's a busy day. Again, having people in the room that aren't afraid to put things together, get it. And if you can get around at a good exchange meeting, it's always good. I think there's one that happens in Sarasota once a month too. I don't follow them all that much. Like I said, guys, I've been out of the picture for a little bit with some personal things with my family, just trying to keep things cooking. But other than that, learn about the exchange meetings because they're great opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Networking is so important.
Yeah, definitely. I put on here, get options. Now, and going back to the deal where I took the two properties to buy another property or exchange into another property is similar to that. Now, I put that property under contract to purchase, but I put a long close date on it because we knew that we were going to need time. So we held it under contract, and let's see. And that was kind of like an option, if you will. My point is, you can go out and find options. And if you've got real estate that you need to unload and you're like, I don't want to pay tax on it, go find some options and have them laying in the weeds. Because if they're sitting over there, they're sitting there. And when that day comes that you need to sell that property, you can do that with that. Or you might do an installment sale. The IRS has got a way you can sell homes over time. So you need to look at those. I'm not a CPA, but these are great tools that you can utilize to kind of to take down your overall tax burden. I'm not trying to teach you how to cheat the system, just utilize the system to your benefit. Let me move on because I'm running out of time. I want to go to my next page here. I got to find my mouse, I guess my computer. There we go. So making the offer, you're going to get all this information. And again, get together, present the magic numbers, talk about them, work it. Do it in person, discuss the deal, have a meeting of the minds. When you meet with people, you get to look into their eyes. One thing I saw, I was watching Bertie Madoff's story last night, and the lady was talking to the guy, and she was an older lady, and she was there with her son, and they got up from the meeting, and some of you may have seen the show on Netflix or whatever it was, and she goes, interesting guy. She's telling her son, he goes, yeah, he's awesome. She goes, yeah, but you know what? He never looked you in the eye when we talked. And you got to pick up on things like that and use your emotion and make sure the meeting of the minds and the conversation, the body language, you'll start to feel if people are honest. I mean, there is something to that. You have a gut, use it. Make sure the numbers make sense for both parties. And again, like I said, don't change the deal. Most people don't even try to make an offer. I encourage you to get out and by the end of the week, underwrite a new home in your area. That's the challenge I'm going to leave you with. I want you to go pick one home or one type of property that you want to look at. I don't care if it's a mobile home park, a mobile in a park, a home, a neighborhood, but at least write the deals. And we're going to enter you guys into our club here. And I want you to post it into that if you can, and let's talk about it. Whether you're going to buy that or not, or if you have a deal you want to write up and talk about it, let's talk about it. I want to help you guys get past the fear of jumping in the water, if you will. And everybody gets it in some way or another. And some people just don't make offers. If you make offers, I don't care how crazy they are every day, you're going to get somewhere. So you got to make the offer. Don't be afraid. After you get your offer is accepted, of course, you got to go through a home inspection and appraisal. If you don't understand what you're looking at, my goal is when I go in to look at a home, I'm typically going to go in and buy the home without an appraisal. I know enough. I mean, not an appraisal, but an inspection. I know enough looking at a home. If the price is right, I don't necessarily care what's wrong with it. But if you want to get an inspection, you're more to get one. I recommend you do it if you don't understand what you're looking at. Or when you go look at the home, bring your buddy who's an inspector with you. Cut him into the deal. I don't know. You got to look at every aspect of it. Bring him with you. Do it then. Save the time. If you want to get an appraisal, you can get an appraisal, but if you start to understand the market you're in and the numbers make sense for the deal to cash flow or to do what you want, the value's there or it's not. I don't know what more appraisal is going to tell you than the house is down the road sold for this, this, and this. Now you're going to get an appraisal if you go into institutional lending. You're going to want an inspection if you go into institutional lending. And some do institutional lending. I've done it. I've gotten really cheap money for 30 years, but I had to jump through some fiery hoops to make it happen. At the end of the day, right now, it's probably pretty difficult to make anything work with 6-7% interest rates. So funding a deal, again, how are you going to do that? You got to go with financial friends. Look to the seller always as an opportunity to do some sort of terms of the sale, lease option, fixed lease, performance mortgage. However, you can control the deal. You don't have to own it to make money. Again, it's very important to understand you can control a deal and not own it and make a lot of money. I controlled 220 houses, well over 12, some million dollars, 20 some million dollars in asset value. I don't have an SEC license, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of value I was controlling, and I was making money on it on top of that. And you don't need anything, you don't need a license to do that. So I controlled it, I didn't own it. Holding title. Now, you can hold title any way you want, your personal name, it's out there. If you don't own nothing, okay. Land trust is my preferred way of owning title. I've owned it with one person, 2, 3 other people. You can become a director of a land trust and kind of control the land trust a little bit. And then you got an LLC, which you got to pay for. You got to, and I can usually typically find who is a registered member of an LLC if they use their own name, if I really wanted to locate. But if you want anonymity, land trusts are great because they're not recorded. And it's a great tool to move property and benefits around. I'm not teaching a land trust here, of course, here. Personal name, you're putting yourself out there. Good luck with that. So it just depends what your goal is, how long you're going to hold it, what you're going to do with it. And then getting to work, the long-term hold, rehab, upgrade, flip. What are you going to do with that property? You know, that's something you really need to decide before you make that offer. But now that you've made the offer and you probably are going to do one of those or a few of those or whatever it may be, get it done. I bought a house in 2006 for 160,000, put 20 grand into it, refinanced it out, took my private lender out of the deal, rented the house, and it was rented for $1,250 a month. The PI was $1,166. And I fed that thing $350 a month until I got the properties from Debbie, who gave me 4 or 5 properties that paid me $350 a month. And so that house cost me money every month. But I mean, if I was to take $300, $400 and put it into an IRA every month, it's kind of the same thing. But I didn't walk away from that home, especially when it dropped from 220 in value down to 100 grand. I kept it. I made it work. I made it happen. Today, that house is free and clear. I moved the mortgage to another house that's not in a flood zone, and it currently pays $1,900 a month. I've got one of my contractors lives in it, does all my painting, and my other house on Pocahontas, he does a lot of flooring and painting. These guys, they love to live in my houses because they know I take care of them, and my houses look great because they're living there. My garbage clean out guy lives in another one. I got to get on him from time to time because he makes it look like Sanford and Son. But just to give you some examples of knowing what we've done, and you need to know what you're going to do with it. That house going back, I do apologize, I got off in the ditch on it there, but the one that I bought for 160, put 20 in, and I refinanced 180 out of it. I should have possibly sold that house and made the 40 grand, but then I wouldn't have the asset today. So, and I'd have had to pay the tax on all the improvement and all that other stuff. And who wants to give the government any more money? I know I'm running out of time here. So just to wrap up, property management versus doing it yourself. It's an art and a science, as you've probably heard it before. It takes mental skill to manage real estate. It takes organization to manage real estate. And if you're not careful, it will eat you alive. And I'm just repeating what I wrote here. And the best option could be hiring a professional service or doing it yourself. You just need to know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and have a system. You can do very well hiring a manager to manage your properties. They're going to take part of the pie, but if you account for that in your deal, you should be okay. If you're going to master lease the property to somebody else, again, you can account for some numbers in there. When they come to you and they want to negotiate a master lease, you can say, you know, I can't afford to do that much, but I can do this. And maybe in 6 years, we sell the property, I give you another bump. There can be some things in that you guys could do. So before I wrap and go to the next slide, Veronica, you asked, are you sharing a master lease today?
Yes, somebody was inquiring, James, if we can go over a master lease.
I'm not going to put one up. So basically, I'll explain how it is, and I would probably rather do that more in my management class. But a master lease is any lease that gives you right to sublease it. Does that make sense? You can take any rental agreement and you can write the terms in it, but a lease must say that I, Matt Funk, lease to Veronica, who leases from Matt Funk. Okay, that's very important. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just letting you know, you need to, in my state, it needs to be specific to what the parties are doing. You have to identify them. You want to put in that lease what the compensation will be, however you're going to write it. You want to put any outs in there, who's paying for maintenance, who's not paying for maintenance. You could have a simple one-page master lease. You can have a simple two-page master lease. You can have a 50-page master lease. Again, keep it simple. Go online, study different master leases. If you've been to David's class, you've gotten his, you've seen a copy of Pete's. You can look at a bunch of different property management agreements and see what they put in there for terms and see if you can word them for your master lease. I'm not here to draft contracts and share contracts. I want to give you guys some tools and tips and recommendations. The master lease itself isn't going to get the deal done. Going out and finding the deal and underwriting areas and understanding an area and a market and knowing what to pay for a deal will help you draft that lease or that purchase contract. Don't be afraid to put something down on paper. If you're not sure, take it to a good title company and say, hey, will this fly? Or find somebody that's really doing it, pull them aside and get one-on-one with another investor, but don't publish this all over the world. These things you keep to yourself on how you kind of draft what you do. I think it's very personable and it's really tied to the deal at hand. There's nothing cookie cutter about real estate. That's why Blackstone and that they fail to manage properly. They can't do it. It's all cookie cutter. They think it is, and it just doesn't work. There's so much emotion in residential real estate management. It ain't even funny. And you got to be able to be two-faced and play the game. Go ahead.
Is there a template or a resource? I know it's very important to keep in mind every state have their own laws and regulations. So I just got my license in Florida, and it's completely different than Northern Virginia. And I would say if you can have, like a approved master lease or at least some reference to go by, that's going to save you a lot of headaches. But Matt, do you use any resources here in Florida to download a template or any organization?
Again, I don't, there's no template for a master lease. It's not, you can get a template to go by and build something from. And I don't teach master leasing per se like David Tilney does. That's his craft. I've done a lot of it. I don't want to get into recommending any type of contracts or that because at the end of the day, every deal I did was different. Every contract I mean, there's nothing standard about real estate. I don't want to say it that way, but I mean, you need to have your go-to things to go to. I mean, you could have a standard purchase agreement or a standard lease, but at the end of the day, you're going to write something different on the terms somewhere, somehow. You're going to adjust something. Like I just said, when it comes to a master lease, just look at a rental agreement. And then just where it says this lease cannot be sublet, just change the word to sublease and then put the terms on the bottom of it if you really want to create. That's a master lease at that point. Now that you've got the right to sublease kind of gives you the power and you become a tenant, a master tenant. You've got an owner, a master tenant. You may have an occupant tenant that's going to live in the home that you sublet to. So it just gives you lease. It gives you powers through the lease. Again, Joe is going to lease to Veronica and Veronica is going to lease from Joe. There's leasee and leaseor. Understand those terms. What's the term? January 1 to December 31st. We're going to review a new management agreement, or it could be for 5 years. Florida got rid of the law where you need anything over 2 years to be witness. So you could be for 30 years, and then now you got a really interesting lease. A 30-year lease usually gives you some rights to the home. So just you could spell the terms out. Like I said, it could be one simple page. It could say who's going to be the parties, how much it's going to rent for, how much you're going to pay your owner rent. That has nothing to do with what you're going to collect from the occupant tenant. It could say who's going to cover maintenance. It could be up to a stop loss. You could say, I'll cover the first $300, the first for $2,000. I'm going to keep $200 a month on top of whatever I collect, or I'm going to pay you, Mr. Owner, $1,000 a year, prepaid 12 grand per year in advance, and then you take it from there. Anything you collect goes back to where you need it to. If at any time at this property goes into foreclosure, whatever, blah blah blah. You can go ahead and put in there whether you want the rents that are coming in to pay any unpaid taxes or insurance or that sort of thing. So All right. Anyway, sorry guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I've got an upcoming class. It's slated for March 25th. I would love to have you guys come. It's just going to be one day. It's going to be online. I'm going to try to do better than what we did now online, and because this is my first time doing it like this. I would love to do this in person as well and online. So if anybody's interested in doing it in person and I get a decent amount, I might go rent a room over at Maggiano's or find something I can do. I just need to make sure I get enough people, of course. And I can get the room over at Maggiano's real easy. They can hold up to 16, 40 in some of their rooms. And if we do that, we would broadcast this on Zoom as well and go from there. So it's a one-day class. I'm going to talk about how I manage my real estate in depth and in detail. I'll go over the systems I use and how I collect the rent, how I market the property, how I'll do a analysis of the rents, and how we lease up a home. Everybody's got their own way. I don't read my lease to the tenants. I don't want to be yelled at for doing lawful things like a lawyer might. I don't want to be called a lawyer or practicing law. And I've heard that people can be told that for sharing information on how a lease works, that sort of thing. I want the tenant to go review the lease, and I want them to do so. And I don't want to get involved in it. We're going to tell you how we do things. Again, you guys have taken classes from other people. And one of the favorite lines I got from David Tilney was draft by design and not default. If I was to pull his system out of the box and just open it up and go to town with it, that's a pretty default situation. I did that starting out, and it's a great way to start. But as time goes on, you develop your own craft and you find things you like that somebody else may not like. So I just want to share that with you so you know. If you're interested in that, let us know. We're going to put you into the real estate juggernaut. And that's on the Mighty Works. What's that?
The Eventbrite link for the upcoming class of March, which is on the 25th. It's on the chat. We're also going to send an email with the link to access this presentation. It's going to be available for 1 week in the link for the upcoming registration. And if you guys have any questions, you'll be able to contact us.
And if I'm going to bow out of this real quick, and then you've got the link up there and I can kind of see everybody, I guess. If I saw Anthony Green was on here. How's California going, Anthony?
Going well, man. I look forward to March. Thanks for getting that together. I appreciate it. Look forward to it. I saw your class in Vegas, and it was very interesting to see behind the scenes. So thanks so much.
Yeah, you mentioned the class in Vegas. That was a little bit different about how I built my business and the things that I've done. And it don't take too many homes to put yourself in a really strong financial position for retirement. 10's an ideal number, but if you got, a good handful of homes, you can do it. And I talked about the deals I did, and I talk about them a lot because they've provided well for me. You guys got any questions? Feel free to just open up the mic and ask. I'll try to talk with you personally as well. And I'll look at the list here.
Can you guys share where you're joining us from? I know we have people from California, Northern Virginia, I believe. If you want to put in the chat or open your mics. Oh, beautiful, Iowa.
You mentioned though how to get your first, because the issue I've had is getting those first few. So I guess you're going through that in the class, right?
Well, no, I was just, how many offers you make this week?
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
All right. You just answer your own questions. You got to make offers. You got to get out and talk to people. There's 24 hours in a day. You get to sleep 8 hours, and you got 16 hours to make something happen. And I know I get tired at the end of the day. I am very productive in the morning. I got up at 6 a.m. and I wrote my notes for this. We did the slides throughout the week. I got to thank Veronica. She really helped me put this together. Guys, I'm not the type of guy to put something like this together. And I would love to do a lot more teaching. I struggle to do this because I'm running a family and everything, and I've got a lot on the plate. But Veronica, you were very instrumental in helping me get my thoughts out. And again, it's probably not even the majority of what I have to share. And again, a lot of you guys may know more than me on some things too. I'm not bragging to be the smartest guy in the room, but I want to share what's been successful for me, and I think it could be for you. So again, getting out and making offers, talking to people. Clyde told me Joe's Crab Shack in Sarasota many years ago. He goes, man, you got to talk to people. And he does. You know, Clyde, he talks to everybody and anybody everywhere, even the lady digging up flowers at the mobile home park. And so you got to talk to people. Come on, guys, ask me some questions.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, and something that I wanted to share with you all, when I met Matt last year on January on Clubhouse, this is how we were introduced. This is an audio app where you can just host virtual sessions. One thing that I realized was missing, everybody focuses on how to get a property, how to buy your first home, how to build your portfolio. But coming from a company like Amazon, where we build fulfillments across the world, if you don't know how to manage your investment, basically all your assets can fall through the drain. And I think that's the one ingredient that it's missing here. Yes, you can have, you know, your team work with your realtor, with your lawyer, but now once you have the property, what? If we don't know the fundamentals, that's really risky. And this is what we want to offer, you know, the platform to interact and learn more about it.
Yeah, definitely. You guys are more than welcome to unmute, and if you got any questions, I encourage the questions. Don't be afraid to ask me anything, because there's no dumb question. I was hoping to share some things with you guys on the marketing. What we don't manage, we lose. Yeah. All right, let me see if I can go ahead and pull up a window here. My screen is not sharing right yet, so let me just pull some things up. I want to share some stuff with you guys. And bear with me. Got to find the finder. Go to computer. If you guys wouldn't mind, you could give me some feedback, and I don't mind critical feedback. Something that could be improved on, whether you liked it or not.
I'm going to share a quick survey. It's like 3 questions, very easy, and then we'll get your feedback.
Oh, here it is. Cool. And I've got some stuff I want to share with you guys. You can look at, and eventually I'll put these in the window as well. But let me pull them up. Now I'm going to share this real quick with you guys. You guys see my screen again?
Yes.
All right. So is it big enough?
Now it is. Perfect.
So you guys can do just this, or you could do a letter, but you don't have to tell your manager if you're not. I'm a manager now, but I'm just telling you, all this can be done on different. You just need to think of how you want to market yourself. So this particular thing is we optimize rents, quality, tenants, best care. Put a picture of myself on there. We started. This is my old postcard. And I think this was during COVID, that sort of thing. I got this idea from a guy in California. On the backside, 5 great reasons to hire me or work with us versus managing yourself. And again, this is, simple stuff here, but that's what we do. I also wrote a newsletter, and some of you know about this, but it's called landlordism. You can do this in your market, and you don't have to say you're a agent or not. You just talk about something that you've done and send that out to people that you're trying to maybe master lease or buy a property from. And it may be, investor news or whatever you want to call it. You think about what could be desirable to people. I put a little thing in there like guess what year, that sort of stuff. And then over on the right, I'll hide the answer here, and then I'll put a fitness tip in there and that sort of thing, and maybe some healthy choices. But I try to write one article on that, and the rest of it is generic, but it captures the attention for somebody who wants to know a little bit about fitness tip or a recipe or that sort of thing. These are all different ways that you can market yourself. It's not necessarily a ideal thing for sending out in mass, but you could go ahead and put together some different things that you could send out to that individual. Going back to the like the door hangers or the postcard, the invitation style type stuff could be great. Let's see here real quick. Here's a postcard. I think That was the one we did for Vistaprint. I just sent it to them, close that. So let me see here.
I wanted to just, go ahead. I think there is a question. Go ahead.
There's a question?
I thought so. I heard something on the background. Okay, so I'll go ahead with the suggestion. There is a company, Canva, CANVA.com, where you can print out your marketing material. You can, also have everything sized before you send it out for printing. And that's very useful. That can also be linked to your social media accounts. And you just, with one touch, is going to show on your Instagram or your Facebook. So Canva.com, it's very helpful as well.
Okay. So I used to own a printing company, guys. So I've got all these programs that I used to use. And I've got stuff on, I was looking for, I guess I haven't tied this to the cloud. I do apologize. I was hoping to show you guys some more stuff. Oh, here it is, Creative Cloud.
Anthony has a question. He says,
Shoot.
Can I ask, how do we find investors-friendly contractor?
Oh, great idea. My friend Todd Breen recommended you go to Home Depot, and I'm not talking about the guy standing there that's illegal that wants to work for $100 a day. He says, go there early in the morning and watch the trucks coming in that are licensed and insured. And talk to those contractors. Those guys are up early. They're getting their materials for the job that they quoted yesterday or whatever it may be, and they're rocking and rolling. So go ahead and work that is one way. Word of mouth is another. But again, guys, use licensed people. I don't want to stress that enough. You're at risk. If you want to take that risk, that's fine. I just don't think it's ideal when you're working with somebody else's asset, especially with the new laws out there and people being raped and murdered and pillaged in homes. You got to be careful. What do I got here? Postcard idea. Let me just see what this is. I think this might be.
Okay, Giovanni has a question. Hopefully, I pronounce he says, how do you find, how do you find a bed service provider, such as plumber, HVAC, fixing issues in the house? There is a company, AngieList.com. I would also look for Facebook pages. Different towns, they do have, like contractors, and you can also see the reviews. Any other ideas, Matt, how to find contractors?
Yeah, I mean, I've got that blog on Facebook where it's vendor only, and that's for our area. And that's what I want to do with the real estate juggernaut. I want to create an area in there where we can all list different vendors that we've worked with and separate them out by area or state. I think that's ideal. They do that in the storage one, and it's pretty cool. That way, if you're investing in Florida or Wisconsin, you might be able to find a good contractor to go ahead and do some stuff for you. At the end of the day, I have guys that I work really well with, and I refer them out, and people call me and complain. So I have a hard time referring my guys out. Personality, I don't know. Maybe they just don't call them back because they're too busy, but they give me precedence over things. If I call them to go work on your house, they'll go do it in a heartbeat. If you call them to go work on your house, sometimes they won't. You may not like the price. I don't beat people up too much on price. If it's close enough, it's close enough. It's hard enough to get 2 contractors to go out to a house. You'll never get 3 to go out and give you a price. But if I know they do good work and I don't have to go back and check it, or when I do check it, I know it's done right, and I don't have to go back and tell them to do something again, that's the guy I want. That's they're above board. So I was just trying to find some other stuff here for you guys, but
I think we have a couple of people that need to drop off the call.
That's fine.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I don't know. You just got to get out and do something. You got to make offers. You got to put the work in. Get out there and do something. Look at a neighborhood, understand it. Again, guys, this was never really brought to my attention. You need to understand that you want cash flow, and then you want to build your estate, because one day you can't work. And the idea that cash flow puts food on the table is for real. It puts gas in the car. Equity does not. But when you got cash flow, and you build equity or your estate, you're putting yourself in a really good position. If you try to just build your estate without cash flow, you're going to be poor. So don't quit your day job. Take money you make from your day job, put it in assets that will pay you passive income that you can live on. That's the goal. You don't want to live off a paycheck. You want to get rid of a paycheck. So utilize that paycheck to help you get what you need so you can live the way you want. That's it. The only way you can do it, you got to make offers. Anthony, you said, well, how do I get my first deal? Call me when you made 100 offers. And if you ain't got something, then we'll figure something out.
You got it, man. There you go.
All
That's a challenge.
All right. Well, you guys know where to reach us. We're going to put you in this group. I hope you guys can join it, and we hope to see you in March. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.